The moment my wife Marissa shoved me away at the party, I knew my marriage was over. Not because of the physical rejection, though that stung like hell, but because of the look in her eyes. Pure disgust, like I was something she'd scraped off her designer heels. "Don't touch me, John!" she hissed, loud enough for half the bar to hear. Her architectural firm was celebrating some big contract, and here I was, the blue-collar husband who didn't belong among the wine-sipping, suit-wearing crowd. I'd only tried to put my arm around her waist, a simple gesture between husband and wife. Instead, I got a public humiliation that made every conversation in the trendy downtown bar pause for a beat. "Bad night?" Lindsay, Marissa's younger sister, appeared beside me with 2 beers. She was the only person in this place who didn't make me feel like an intruder. "Last one, actually," I said, forcing a smile. The words came out before I'd even fully processed what I meant, but they felt right. Final. Lindsay raised an eyebrow. She was everything Marissa used to be, warm, genuine, with wild curly hair she never bothered to tame. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, I caught sight of Marissa across the room. She was laughing at something Scott Randall had whispered in her ear, her hand resting on his arm just a little too long. Scott was her business partner, all slicked back hair and expensive cologne, the kind of guy who'd never worked with his hands a day in his life. "You see it too," Lindsay said quietly. "See what?" "The way she looks at him, the way she used to look at you." I took a long pull from my beer, watching my wife of 15 years flirt with another man like I didn't exist. "How long have you known?" "Suspected?" "Months." "Known for sure?" "Since I saw them leaving the Marriott together last Tuesday." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but part of me felt relieved. I wasn't going crazy. The late nights, the sudden interest in her appearance, the way she flinched when I touched her, it all made sense now.
Why didn't you tell me sooner?
Lindsay's green eyes, so different from Marissa's cold blue ones, filled with something I couldn't quite read. "Because I was hoping I was wrong. And because," she paused, looking down at her beer, "because I didn't want to be the one to hurt you." Across the room, Marissa threw her head back laughing at another one of Scott's jokes. Her hand was now openly caressing his forearm. Several of her coworkers were watching, whispering among themselves. Everyone could see what was happening, except the stupid husband in the corner. "I need some air," I said. "John, wait."
Loss and deeming.
But I was already pushing through the crowd, past the exposed brick walls and Edison bulb fixtures, past the people who'd never accepted me anyway. Outside, the October night was crisp, and I could finally breathe again. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Marty. "How's the fancy party? You wearing that tie I lent you?" I looked down at the navy tie, the nicest one I owned, that Marissa had picked out for me. She'd actually seemed excited about me coming tonight. Now I understood why. Having the devoted husband there made her flirtation with Scott seem more dangerous, more thrilling. Instead of texting back, I got in my truck and drove home to our modest 2-story house in the suburbs, the place we'd bought together when we still talked about having kids, when she still smiled when I walked through the door. I sat in the driveway for a long time, engine running, heat blasting. Through the living room window, I could see the life we'd built together. The couch where we used to watch movies. The bookshelf I'd built her for our 5th anniversary. The framed photo from our honeymoon in Maine, back when she laughed at my jokes instead of rolling her eyes. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I went inside and pulled out my laptop. As a maintenance supervisor at the community college, I'd picked up more than a few technical skills over the years. Nothing fancy, but enough to know my way around basic surveillance equipment. 2 hours later, I'd ordered everything I needed from Amazon, with overnight shipping. Tiny wireless cameras, no bigger than buttons, a digital recorder, a few other items that would come in handy. If Marissa wanted to play games, I'd give her a game she'd never forget. And the cameras arrived the next morning, while Marissa was at work. I'd called in sick, something I never did, and spent the day turning our home into a surveillance network. Nothing illegal, nothing hidden in private spaces like the bathroom or bedroom. Just the common areas where any guest might reasonably expect to be seen. Living room, kitchen, hallway, home office. I was careful, methodical. The cameras were motion activated and streamed directly to a cloud server I'd set up. Everything time-stamped, everything recorded. By the time Marissa came home that evening, I was back to being the same John she'd grown tired of. Quiet, unassuming, easy to ignore. "How was work?" I asked as she kicked off her heels by the front door. "Fine," she said without looking at me. She was already texting someone, probably Scott. The Henderson project still giving you trouble? She paused, thumb hovering over her phone screen. For a moment, I thought she might actually talk to me. It's under control. Maybe I could. John, I'm exhausted. Can we not do this tonight? This, like trying to have a conversation with my wife, was some kind of burden. Sure, I said. I'll make dinner. She was already heading upstairs. I'm not hungry. I made myself a sandwich and ate it alone at the kitchen table, watching her through the ceiling as she paced around our bedroom, talking on the phone in hushed tones. The old John would have gone upstairs, would have tried to connect, would have asked what was wrong. The new John just watched and waited. The next few days fell into a pattern. Marissa would leave early for work, come home late, and spend most of her time on her phone or laptop. She was distracted, distant, but also strangely energetic, the way people get when they're living a secret life. On Thursday, she announced she was going out with the girls on Friday night. Which girls? I asked. From work. You don't know them. Lindsay going? Something flickered across her face. No, Lindsay's busy. I nodded like I believed her. Have fun. That Friday, I waited until she left, dressed to kill in a black dress I'd never seen before, then called Lindsay. Want to grab a beer? I asked. Marissa's out with her work friends. There was a pause. John, I don't think I know where she is, I said, and I know who she's with. I just don't want to be alone tonight. Another pause. Okay, but not somewhere we might run into them. We met at Murphy's, a dive bar on the other side of town, the kind of place with sticky floors and a jukebox that still played actual CDs. Lindsay was waiting in a corner booth, nursing a whiskey sour. You look like hell, she said as I sat down. Thanks, you look great. She did. Lindsay had always been the prettier sister, in my opinion. Where Marissa was all sharp angles and calculated beauty, Lindsay was soft curves and natural warmth. Tonight she'd worn her hair down, and it fell in waves around her shoulders. So what's your plan? She asked. Plan? Come on, John. I know you. You're not the type to just roll over and take it. You're planning something. I took a long drink of my beer. What would you do if you were me? Honestly, I'd burn her whole world down. The venom in Lindsay's voice surprised me. She's got everything. Successful career, beautiful house, devoted husband, and she's throwing it away for what? Some sleazy guy in an expensive suit? You really don't like Scott. I don't like what he represents. Marissa used to be different, you know? Before she got successful, before she started caring so much about appearances and status. She used to be more like, she trailed off. Like what? Like someone who deserved you. Our eyes met across the table, and something passed between us. Something that had probably been building for years without either of us acknowledging it. Lindsay? I know, she said quickly. You're married to my sister. You're a good guy. You'd never. What if I wasn't married to your sister? The question hung in the air between us. Lindsay's cheeks flushed pink, and she looked down at her drink. But you are, she said finally. For now. She looked up at me then, and I saw something in her green eyes that I hadn't seen in my wife's face for years. Want. Not just physical attraction, but genuine affection. The look of someone who actually liked spending time with me. What are you saying, John? I leaned forward. I'm saying that maybe it's time I stopped being the good guy. It took 2 weeks to get what I needed. 2 weeks of Marissa coming and going, bringing Scott to our house when she thought I was at work. 2 weeks of watching them on my phone screen as they laughed and kissed and planned their future together in the home I'd helped pay for. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I was installing surveillance equipment, Marissa was getting careless. She stopped hiding her phone. She stopped making excuses. She even brought Scott to our anniversary dinner, claiming he happened to be at the same restaurant. On a Tuesday morning in November, I made my move. I waited until Marissa left for work, then spent an hour writing the perfect note. Not angry, that would make me look unstable. Not pleading, that would make me look pathetic. Just cold, factual, and devastating. Marissa, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know about Scott. I've known for weeks. I also know you've been telling people I'm controlling and emotionally abusive. Lindsay told me about your conversations. Since you seem so unhappy in this marriage, I'm giving you what you want. The divorce papers are on the kitchen counter. I've moved out, but don't worry about the house. I've signed it over to Lindsay. She's been such a comfort to me during this difficult time. Check the cameras. John. P.S. The footage is already backed up in multiple locations. I left the note on her pillow, along with a flash drive, containing 2 weeks of surveillance footage. Not just her and Scott, but also the videos I'd staged with Lindsay over the past few days. Videos of us cooking dinner together, laughing on the couch, slow dancing in the kitchen to old songs on the radio. Nothing sexual. I wasn't trying to create fake evidence of an affair, but anyone watching would see what I wanted them to see. A man finding comfort with a woman who actually appreciated him. The house transfer was real. I'd had my lawyer draw up the papers the day after my conversation with Lindsay at Murphy's. She'd been reluctant at first, but I'd convinced her it was temporary, just part of the plan. What plan? She'd asked. Trust me, I'd said. Now, sitting in Lindsay's downtown loft with my suitcase and laptop, I waited for the explosion. It came at 11:47 a.m. My phone rang with Marissa's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again. By the fourth call, Lindsay was looking at me with concern. Maybe you should answer, she said. Not yet. The voicemails started coming fast and furious. The first few were angry, demanding I call her back. Then confused, asking what I meant about cameras. Then panicked, as she obviously found and watched the footage. The last one was different. John, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. Scott doesn't mean anything to me. It was just, I was confused. Please don't do this. Please don't destroy our marriage over a mistake. I played it for Lindsay, who was curled up on her couch with a cup of coffee, still in her pajamas. She sounds scared, Lindsay said. Good. You're really going through with this. I looked around Lindsay's loft. Exposed brick, hardwood floors, artwork from local artists covering the walls. It was everything our suburban house wasn't. Creative, authentic, alive. Are you having second thoughts? I asked. Lindsay set down her coffee and moved closer to me on the couch. About helping you? No. About what this means for us? She paused. I don't know what this is, John. I don't know if you're using me to get back at Marissa, or if there's something real here. I reached over and tucked a strand of her wild hair behind her ear. There's something real here. She leaned into my touch. Then yes, I'm having second thoughts. Because once we do this, there's no going back. Marissa will never forgive either of us. Do you care? She was quiet for a long moment. No, she said finally. I don't think I do. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't Marissa. It was her mother, Helen, I answered. John? Thank God. Marissa is here, and she's hysterical. She's saying you've left her for Lindsay. That can't be true. I put the phone on speaker so Lindsay could hear. Hello, Helen? John? What's going on? Marissa is talking about cameras and footage, and frankly, she's not making much sense. Did she show you the videos? What videos? I heard Marissa's voice in the background, sharp and desperate. Don't talk to him. He's lost his mind. Helen, I said calmly, your daughter has been having an affair with her business partner for months. She's also been telling people I'm abusive. Since she seems so unhappy in our marriage, I've decided to give her what she wants. That's not, John, you don't understand. But Helen had already hung up. Lindsay was staring at me. You're really good at this. At what? Being ruthless. I never would have guessed. I pulled her closer, and she didn't resist. People underestimate the quiet ones. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Scott. We need to talk. Man to man. I showed it to Lindsay, who laughed. Man to man. What is this, the Old West? I typed back. Nothing to discuss. Enjoy my leftovers. His response came immediately. You have no idea what you're messing with. This time, I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone and kissed Lindsay. She tasted like coffee and possibility, like everything my marriage had stopped being years ago. What now? She whispered against my lips. Now we let them panic. I came to Lindsay's loft the next evening. I was expecting Marissa, but not the entourage. Scott, both of Marissa's parents, and even her older brother David, who'd driven down from Boston. Lindsay and I were making dinner when the buzzer rang. She looked through the security monitor and groaned. It's the whole family circus, she said. Don't let them up. They're not going anywhere, John. Look, I peered at the monitor. They were all standing on the sidewalk, looking up at the building like they were planning a siege. Marissa was gesticulating wildly, clearly upset. Scott had his hand on her shoulder in what was probably meant to be a comforting gesture, but just looked possessive. Might as well get this over with, I said. Lindsay buzzed them up. They came through the door like an invasion force, Marissa leading the charge. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, makeup smeared, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. John, thank God you're okay. I was so worried. Save it, I said. She stopped short, like I'd slapped her. In 15 years of marriage, I'd never spoken to her that way. John, Helen said, stepping forward. We need to discuss this situation rationally. What situation is that, Helen? This, whatever this is. She gestured between Lindsay and me. This revenge fantasy you're acting out. It's not a fantasy. Scott finally spoke up. Look, man, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Shut up, I said, not even looking at him. You don't get to talk. The room went quiet. David, who I'd always gotten along with, looked uncomfortable. John, maybe we should all sit down and… No, Marissa interrupted. I want to know what the hell you think you're doing. Cameras in our house? Manipulating my sister? This isn't you, John. This is sick. What's sick? I said, my voice deadly calm. Is fucking your business partner in our bed, and then calling me abusive when I try to touch you in public. Helen gasped. David looked at the floor. Scott shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't like that, Marissa said. Really? Because I have hours of footage that says otherwise. You recorded us without consent. That's illegal. In common areas of my own house. I don't think so, but feel free to call the police. Lindsay moved closer to me. A show of solidarity that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Marissa's eyes narrowed as she looked at her sister. How could you do this to me? Marissa asked Lindsay. He's my husband. Was, Lindsay said quietly. And you threw him away. For what? Some midlife crisis? Some fantasy about the life you never had? For someone who actually wants to be with me. Scott finally found his voice again. This is ridiculous. Marissa, let's go. Let him have his little tantrum. I turned to face him for the first time. You know what's funny, Scott? You think you won. You think you got the girl, the successful woman with the perfect life? But you have no idea what you're getting. John, Marissa started. She's going to get bored with you too, I continued. Just like she got bored with me. And when she does, she'll find someone new to blame for her unhappiness. Someone new to cheat on. That's enough, Marissa shouted. Is it? Because I'm just getting started. I walked to Lindsay's laptop and pulled up a folder I'd prepared for this moment. Want to see what your daughter's been up to, Helen? The real footage, not the edited version. John, don't, Marissa pleaded. But I was already clicking play. The video showed Marissa and Scott in our kitchen, 3 days ago. They were talking about me, laughing about how clueless I was, how easy it was to fool me. He actually believes I'm working late. Marissa's voice came through the speakers. God, he's pathetic. When are you going to tell him? Scott asked. Why would I tell him? This arrangement works perfectly. He pays the mortgage, I get the excitement. Helen's face went white. David was staring at his sister like he'd never seen her before. There's more, I said, reaching for the laptop again. Stop. Marissa's voice was barely a whisper. Please. I paused, my hand on the keyboard. Why should I? Because I'm begging you. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the party, the shove, the look of disgust in her eyes. The way I begged you not to push me away at the party? The way I begged you to talk to me, to tell me what was wrong, to let me fix whatever I'd done? Tears were streaming down her face now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, I said. You're embarrassed. There's a difference. I clicked play on the next video. The second video was worse than the first. Marissa and Scott weren't just mocking me. They were planning their future together. Scott's divorce from his wife, Marissa's divorce from me, how they'd merge their architectural firms and become the power couple of the local design scene. We'll have to be careful about the timing, Scott was saying. Can't look like we left our spouses for each other. John will be fine, Marissa replied. He's like a golden retriever. He'll just find someone else to follow around. Helen stood up abruptly. I've heard enough. She looked at Marissa with disappointment that cut deeper than any anger could have. How did I raise such a selfish person? Mom, don't. Just don't. Helen turned to me. John, I'm sorry. I'm so very sorry. She walked out, followed by David, who couldn't even look at his sister. That left Marissa, Scott, Lindsay, and me in the loft. The silence stretched until Scott broke it. Okay, you've had your fun. You've humiliated her in front of her family. Are you satisfied? Not even close. What do you want? Money? We can work something out. I want you to leave, Lindsay said. Both of you, now. Marissa looked at her sister with something approaching hatred. This isn't over. Yeah, it is, I said. Your parents saw who you really are. David saw. Soon everyone will see. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. You'll find out. After they left, Lindsay and I sat in silence for a long time. The confrontation had been everything I'd hoped for, and more. But I felt strangely empty. You okay? Lindsay asked. I thought I'd feel better. She curled up next to me on the couch. It's not over yet, is it? No. This was just the opening act. Over the next week, I put the rest of my plan into motion. I'd made copies of all the footage, edited into a highlight reel that told the story perfectly. Marissa's affair, her cruel comments about me, her plans with Scott. I sent it to everyone. Her coworkers, her clients, her college friends, the local business association where she served on the board, the charity organizations where she volunteered. I didn't send it anonymously. Every email came from my personal account, with a simple message. I thought you should know who you're really dealing with. The response was immediate and devastating. Marissa's biggest client canceled their contract. The business association asked for her resignation. Her college friends stopped returning her calls. The charity removed her from their board. But the real masterpiece was what happened at Scott's firm. See, Scott was married too, and his wife Emily was well connected in the local social scene. When she saw the footage of her husband planning his divorce while still married to her, she didn't just file for divorce. She called every one of their mutual friends, every business contact, every client. By Friday, Scott's reputation was in ruins. His wife had frozen their joint accounts. His business partners were distancing themselves. His own clients were jumping ship. He called me that night, drunk and desperate. "You destroyed my life," he slurred into the phone. "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed your life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. This isn't over." "Yeah, it is. And Scott? If you ever contact me or my family again, the next video I release will be the one of you crying in your car outside the law office." Yes, I have that too. The line went dead. Lindsay was watching me from across the room. "Family? What? You said me or my family. You called me family." I hadn't even realized I'd said it, but it felt right. "Is that okay?" She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all week. "Yeah, it's okay." But we both knew it wasn't over. Marissa was too proud, too stubborn to just accept defeat. She was planning something, and when she struck back, it would be vicious. I was counting on it. Marissa's revenge came 2 weeks later, and it was exactly what I'd expected from someone who'd never learned to lose gracefully. She hired a private investigator to follow Lindsay and me, hoping to catch us in some compromising situation she could use against us. When that failed, we weren't hiding anything. She got desperate. The first sign was the vandalism. Someone spray-painted "homewrecker" on Lindsay's car and threw a brick through her loft window. The police took a report, but there was no evidence it was Marissa. The second sign was the phone calls. Late-night hang-ups, heavy breathing, the occasional whispered threat. Again, no way to prove it was her. The third sign was when she showed up at my work. I was in the maintenance office at the community college, going over supply orders, when she walked in. She looked better than she had in weeks. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing the blue dress I used to love. "Hello, John." "Marissa, you're not supposed to be here. I need to talk to you. Really talk, not with an audience." I leaned back in my chair. "Go ahead." She closed the door and sat across from my desk. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, human. "I made a mistake," she said. "A huge, terrible mistake. But it doesn't have to end like this, doesn't it? We can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems. I'll end things with Scott. I already have, actually. We can start over." I studied her face, looking for any sign of sincerity. "What about Lindsay? What about her? You're using her to hurt me, we both know that. But when you're done with this revenge fantasy, you'll realize what you're throwing away." And what am I throwing away? 15 years of marriage, a home, a life we built together. A life where you cheated on me and called me pathetic behind my back. She flinched. I was angry. People say things when they're angry. For months, Marissa. You said those things for months. Because I felt trapped. Because I felt like we were just going through the motions, like we were roommates instead of lovers. I needed something to make me feel alive again. So you chose Scott. I chose excitement. I chose feeling wanted, feeling desired. When was the last time you looked at me the way you look at Lindsay? It was a fair question, and we both knew it. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped seeing each other as lovers and started seeing each other as obligations. "That doesn't excuse what you did," I said finally. "No, it doesn't, but it explains it." She leaned forward. "John, I know you. You're not cruel. This isn't who you are. Maybe it's who I needed to become. Because of Lindsay, she's using you, John. Can't you see that? She's always been jealous of what we had. What we had was a lie. No, it wasn't. The problems were real, but so was the love. So were the good times, the dreams we shared, the life we built. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, students were walking between classes, young and full of possibility. I remembered being that age, meeting Marissa in college, thinking we'd conquer the world together. It's too late, I said. It's not. It's never too late if both people want to try. I turned back to her. Do you really want to try? Or do you just want to win? She was quiet for a long moment. I want my husband back. Your husband is gone. You killed him the night you pushed me away at that party. John, no. You made your choice, Marissa. You chose Scott. You chose the affair. You chose to humiliate me in public. Now you have to live with the consequences. Her composure finally cracked. Fine. But don't think this is over. Don't think you can just destroy my life and walk away. I didn't destroy your life. I just showed people who you really are. She stood up, her face twisted with rage. You want to see who I really am? You want to see what I'm capable of? Actually, yeah, I do. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I sat back down and returned to my supply orders. But my hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, from anticipation. The final act was about to begin. It started that evening with a call from Lindsay. John, you need to get over here. Now. What's wrong? Just come. And bring your laptop. I found Lindsay's loft in chaos. Furniture overturned. Papers scattered. Her art supplies destroyed. Lindsay was sitting in the middle of it all, holding a piece of paper. She broke in, Lindsay said. Trashed the place, then left this. I took the paper. It was a printed email, one I'd never seen before, supposedly from me to Lindsay, dated 3 months ago. Before Marissa's affair, before any of this started. The email was explicit, sexual, describing in graphic detail what I wanted to do to Lindsay. It talked about how I'd been planning to leave Marissa for her, how I'd been manipulating the situation to make it happen. She faked this, I said. I know. But John, look at the metadata. Look at the technical details. She had help, professional help. This looks real. I opened my laptop and examined the email more closely. Lindsay was right. Someone with serious technical skills had created this, complete with fake server logs and timestamp data. She's going to send this to everyone, Lindsay said. Make it look like you were the one having an affair, like everything else was just you covering your tracks. Let her. John, this could destroy you, your job, your reputation. Let her try. I was already typing, pulling up files I'd been saving for exactly this moment. She wants to play dirty? Fine. But she's not the only one who can hire professionals. Over the next hour, I uploaded everything to a website I'd had built weeks ago. Not just the footage of Marissa and Scott, but financial records showing how she'd been hiding money in preparation for divorce. Text messages between her and Scott, discussing how to manipulate their respective divorce proceedings. Even recordings of her phone calls, perfectly legal, since I was a party to the conversations. The website was called The Truth About Marissa Doyle, and it was comprehensive, devastating, and completely factual. Then I sent the link to everyone in town. My phone started ringing within minutes. First Marty, then coworkers, then people I barely knew. The story was spreading like wildfire through social media, local forums, everywhere. Jesus, John, Marty said when I finally answered. You really went nuclear. She started it. Yeah, but this is going to follow her forever. Good. By morning, it was over. Marissa's fake email looked pathetic compared to the mountain of real evidence I'd presented. Scott's law firm fired him. Marissa's remaining clients abandoned her. Even their friends, the ones who'd initially been sympathetic, turned against them when they saw the full scope of the deception. The final blow came when Helen called. John? It's Helen. I wanted you to know. We've cut Marissa off financially, completely. After seeing everything on that website, she paused. I don't know who she became, but she's not the daughter I raised. I'm sorry it came to this, Helen. No, you're not. And honestly, neither am I. She made her choices. That afternoon, I was back at work when my boss called me into his office. I thought I was in trouble. The website had mentioned my employer, but instead, he shook my hand. Hell of a thing, he said. My wife showed me that website. Takes guts to put yourself out there like that. I just wanted people to know the truth. Well, they do now. And John? If you need time off to deal with the divorce proceedings, Just let me know. I walked out of his office, feeling lighter than I had in months. It was over. Really, truly over. That evening, Lindsay and I sat on her couch. She'd replaced the furniture Marissa had destroyed, and watched the sunset through her repaired window. So what now? She asked. Now we see what happens next. Are you happy? I thought about it. I'm satisfied. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. But it's enough for now. She curled up against me, and I held her close. Outside, the city was going about its business, unaware that one man's quiet life had just exploded and reformed into something entirely new. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You won. Congratulations. I hope it was worth destroying 2 families. I showed it to Lindsay, who read it and shrugged. Marissa? Probably. Are you going to respond? I deleted the message without replying. There was nothing left to say. 3 days later, I heard through Marty that Marissa and Scott had left town. No forwarding address, no goodbye. They'd just vanished, leaving behind ruined reputations and burned bridges. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no closure. Just emptiness where 15 years of marriage used to be. But when I looked at Lindsay, really looked at her, the way she deserved to be looked at, I felt something else. Not love, not yet, but possibility. The chance to build something real with someone who actually wanted to be with me. You know, she said one morning as we were making breakfast together, I never thanked you. For what? For showing me what I was worth. I kissed her forehead. You showed me the same thing. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I smiled and meant it. 6 months later, Lindsay and I were married in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Marty was my best man. Helen was there, along with David and his family. Even some of my coworkers came. Marissa and Scott were nowhere to be found. I'd heard rumors they'd moved to California, started over with new identities and new lies. I hoped they were happy, but I didn't really care. As Lindsay and I exchanged vows, I thought about the night at that trendy bar when she'd asked if I was having a bad night. Last one, I'd said. I was right.